Most backyard gardens look almost identical. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, maybe some basil and a row of lettuce. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But a growing number of experienced gardeners have quietly shifted in a different direction, and they're growing plants you've probably never heard of. Plants that feed into the herbal wellness market, into specialty restaurants, into the natural skincare industry, into the pet products aisle. Plants that cost almost nothing to start, take up very little space, and return far more per square foot than any tomato ever will. Some of these plants pay you back in flavors you can't buy at a supermarket. Some pay you back in health benefits that people are willing to spend real money to get. And for the small number of gardeners paying attention, a handful of them turn into steady side income from direct sales to restaurants, farmers markets, or specialty buyers who've been looking for a reliable local source. I want to walk you through 15 of these plants. Not every one of them will fit your climate or your situation, and I'll be honest about that as we go. But every one of them is worth knowing about, because the gardens that return the most value aren't the ones with the most tomatoes. They're the ones planted with a little more intention. Let's start with the wellness powerhouses. These are the plants driving one of the fastest growing consumer categories in the world right now, the adaptogen and herbal supplement space, and they happen to be surprisingly easy to grow if you match them to the right conditions. Moringa is the first, and this is the plant that has earned nicknames like the miracle tree across 3 continents, because the nutritional profile is genuinely extraordinary. Moringa oleifera leaves contain more calcium per gram than dairy, more iron per gram than spinach, more vitamin C per gram than oranges, and a complete amino acid profile that's rare in any plant. Those comparisons are gram for gram, measured against dried moringa. But even on a practical fresh use basis, it's one of the most nutritionally dense leaves in human cultivation. What makes moringa especially interesting for a home grower is its speed. In tropical and subtropical climates, zones 9 through 11, moringa can reach 10 to 15 feet in a single year from seed. In cooler climates, you can grow it in a large container and overwinter it indoors, keeping a productive plant going for years. Mature trees produce 15 to 30 pounds of leaf biomass per year once established, and you can harvest leaves, seeds, and the nutrient-rich pods, each of which has a separate market. On the selling side, fresh moringa leaves move at local farmers markets at $8 to $15 per pound where there's demand, and dried moringa leaf powder, which is how most of the supplement market consumes it, sells for $15 to $30 per pound, depending on quality and certification. If you can grow it organically, that number climbs. For a grower in a suitable climate, a small planting of 3 to 5 moringa trees can quietly become one of the most productive corners of the entire garden. Ashwagandha is the second, and this is one of the headliners of the adaptogen market. Withania somnifera has been central to Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years, and modern research has caught up enough that the global supplement industry now treats it as a staple ingredient. Clinical studies have looked at its effects on cortisol levels, stress response, sleep quality, and energy, which is why it's ended up in capsules, powders, tinctures, and teas sold in nearly every health store in the US and Europe. For a grower, ashwagandha is a root crop. The valuable part is underground, and you're harvesting roots after about 150 to 180 days from seed. It prefers warm, dry conditions and sandy or loamy soil that drains well. Overwatering is the most common mistake, because ashwagandha evolved in arid climates and genuinely performs better with less attention than more. Treat it like a drought-tolerant herb and it rewards you. Dried ashwagandha root sells for $15 to $30 per pound to herbalists, tea blenders, and supplement companies. Powdered root commands similar or higher pricing when you process it yourself. For growers willing to invest a season in learning harvest timing and proper drying, ashwagandha is one of the highest return root crops in temperate gardens. Tulsi is the third, also called holy basil. and this plant sits at the intersection of several booming markets at once. Ocimum tenuiflorum has deep roots in Hindu tradition and Ayurvedic medicine. But it's the last decade of Western adaptogen awareness that's pushed Tulsi into the mainstream. It's now sold in teas, tinctures, capsules, essential oils, and even skincare products. It's also one of the easier plants on this list to grow, producing abundantly from spring through first frost in most temperate climates, and handling multiple harvests per season. Dried Tulsi leaves sell for $10 to $25 per pound, and Tulsi tea blends, whether you package them yourself or supply loose leaf to tea companies, command premium prices in the specialty tea market. A single well-tended Tulsi plant produces pounds of dried leaf across a growing season, and the demand keeps pace with supply for growers who can deliver quality. There's also an ethnic market angle, because Tulsi has spiritual significance in Hindu culture, and South Asian grocery stores and temples often purchase fresh and dried Tulsi consistently. Gotu Kola is the fourth, and this is the plant most Western gardeners don't know exists, but that a growing number of nootropic and herbal supplement companies are actively looking for. Centella asiatica has been used in traditional Asian medicine for thousands of years, and recent research has examined its effects on cognitive function, wound healing, circulation, and skin regeneration. It's one of the ingredients driving the nootropic and natural skincare markets, both of which are growing rapidly in the US and Europe. What makes Gotu Kola valuable for a home grower is that it's shade tolerant, which means it grows where many other crops can't. It thrives in moist, warm conditions and performs well in containers or in protected environments in cooler zones. Dried Gotu Kola sells for $15 to $30 per pound to specialty herbalists, and as a nootropic ingredient, it commands higher prices through direct sales to supplement producers. The real opportunity with Gotu Kola isn't the retail market, though. It's the direct-to-practitioner market. Naturopathic practitioners, herbalists, and small supplement makers actively look for quality domestic supply, and a grower who builds those relationships can charge premium prices without the pressure of farmers' market pricing. It's a plant to pair with strategic relationship building, and for patient growers, it turns into a reliable niche. That's 4 plants in. All 4 feed the wellness space, which is one of the most consistently growing consumer categories of the last decade. The next group shifts toward kitchen and household markets, where the volume can be lower, but the entry barrier is dramatically easier for beginners. The next 5 plants move the conversation out of the supplement and adaptogen space and into the kitchen, the pet aisle, the skincare shelf, and the specialty tea shop. These are plants most gardeners can grow without any tropical climate advantages, and they connect to markets that are already well established and actively buying. Stevia is the 5th, and this plant has quietly become one of the most consistently profitable herbs a small grower can produce. Stevia rebaudiana is the natural sweetener that the food and beverage industry has spent the last decade shifting toward as consumers moved away from artificial sweeteners. The global stevia market has grown substantially over that period, driven by the diabetic health space, the keto and low-carb community, and the clean eating movement. Fresh stevia leaves are naturally 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar by weight, which means a small amount of plant material goes a very long way. For a grower, dried stevia leaves sell for $12 to $25 per pound through health food retailers, specialty grocery stores, and direct sales online. Stevia grown for direct contract supply to small food manufacturers or herbal tea companies can command higher prices with consistent volume. In warm climates, zones 9 through 11, stevia behaves like a perennial. In cooler zones, it works beautifully as an annual, planted in late spring after frost and harvested repeatedly through summer. It wants full sun and well-draining soil, and once established, it's a prolific producer that can be cut back multiple times in a single season. Lemon balm is the 6th, and this one is almost unfairly easy to grow, which is part of why experienced growers love it. Melissa officinalis is a member of the mint family with a clean lemon citrus aroma, and it feeds directly into some of the most active categories in herbal wellness: the sleep and relaxation market, the stress relief tea market, the aromatherapy space, and the herbal beverage industry all rely on lemon balm as a staple ingredient. It's one of those plants you see on nearly every calm or sleep tea blend sold in natural food stores. Growing it is genuinely easy. Lemon balm tolerates a wide range of soil conditions, handles partial shade, comes back reliably as a perennial in most temperate climates, and produces pounds of harvestable biomass from a small patch. Dried lemon balm sells for $10 to $18 per pound wholesale to tea blenders and herbal supplement companies, and retail direct-to-consumer pricing through farmers markets and online sales is often higher. The one thing that determines the value of your lemon balm is quality of drying. Lemon balm that's been dried too hot or too slow loses its volatile oils and its aroma, which is exactly what buyers are paying for. Learn to dry it well, and you have a crop that keeps producing for years. Catnip is the seventh, and most gardeners underestimate this plant because they think of it as a novelty. The pet industry sees it very differently. Pet spending in the United States has grown into a category worth tens of billions of dollars annually, and the premium pet product space, organic, naturally sourced, and domestically grown, is one of the fastest-growing subcategories inside that market. Catnip sits right at the center of it. Nepeta cataria grows quickly, tolerates a wide range of climates, returns reliably as a perennial, and produces significant biomass per plant. Bulk dried catnip sells for $6 to $15 per pound to wholesalers. But that's not the interesting number. When you package catnip into small retail pouches, 1 or 2 ounces sold as cat toys or treats, the per-pound equivalent jumps dramatically, often to $40 or $60 per pound. Finished catnip stuffed toys, catnip sprays, and organic catnip treats command even higher margins. For a grower with basic crafting skills and a willingness to package for retail, catnip is one of the highest margin plants on this list. Calendula is the 8th, and this flower has quietly become one of the most requested ingredients in the natural skincare boom that's been reshaping the cosmetics industry. Calendula officinalis, also called pot marigold, has been used in skincare, wound healing, and herbal medicine for centuries, and the clean beauty market has elevated it from folk remedy to premium cosmetic ingredient. Small batch skincare makers, soap producers, balm and salve formulators, and cosmetic manufacturers all actively purchase dried calendula petals and calendula-infused oil. Dried calendula petals sell for $12 to $25 per pound to skincare producers and herbal retailers. Calendula-infused oil, which you can produce yourself by infusing dried petals in a carrier oil like olive or jojoba, sells for dramatically more per ounce to small cosmetic makers. Fresh calendula flowers also have a market as specialty cut flowers for florists and event planners who want garden-style florals. The plant itself is a prolific bloomer that produces more flowers the more frequently you harvest, and it grows well across most of the US and Europe, from zones 3 through 11 as an annual or short-lived perennial. A small, well-maintained calendula bed can generate meaningful seasonal income from dried petals alone, and the value climbs significantly when you process it into finished products. Yaupon holly is the 9th, and this is the sleeper crop on this list for gardeners in the right region. Ilex vomitoria is the only plant native to North America that contains meaningful caffeine, and it's been brewed into tea by indigenous peoples of the Southeast for thousands of years. Despite that long history, most Americans have never heard of yaupon tea, which is exactly why a small but growing number of specialty tea producers are building entire businesses around it. Yaupon has been featured in major food publications over the last few years, has appeared on high-end restaurant menus, and is catching the attention of the same kind of consumers who got excited about matcha a decade ago. Artisan yaupon tea currently sells for $15 to $30 per pound in specialty markets, with premium small batch producers commanding even more. It's a native shrub that grows across USDA zones 7 through 10, primarily across the southeastern United States, and it thrives with almost no intervention once established. It tolerates poor soil, drought, and neglect. For growers in the right climate zone, yaupon holly represents something genuinely rare, a native North American crop with a legitimate caffeine market behind it and almost no domestic competition yet. That window won't stay open forever, which makes it worth considering now for anyone in the southeastern U.S. looking for a long-term specialty crop with real differentiation. That's 9 plants. 4 wellness-focused, 5 connected to kitchen, pet, skincare, and beverage markets. The next group shifts into specialty culinary territory, where chefs, ethnic grocery stores, and specific cultural communities create some of the most reliable and relationship-based markets available to a small grower. The last 6 plants live in specialty culinary markets, where the buyers are specific, the relationships matter, and the competition is often far thinner than in mainstream produce. These are plants that chefs actively search for, that ethnic grocery stores consistently need, and that certain communities genuinely can't cook without. For a grower near the right markets, these crops are among the most rewarding on this entire list. Culantro is the 10th, and if you've never encountered it, you're about to understand why certain kitchens can't function without it. Eryngium foetidum is often confused with cilantro because the flavor is similar. But culantro is dramatically stronger, more pungent, and more heat-stable, which means it holds its flavor through cooking in a way cilantro simply can't. In Puerto Rico, it's called recao. In Trinidad, it's shadow beni. In Vietnam, it's used extensively in pho. In Thai cooking, it appears in soups and curries. Across Latin American, Caribbean, and Southeast Asian cuisines, culantro is not an optional herb. It's essential. For a grower, the value of culantro comes from how hard it is to find commercially. Mainstream grocery stores almost never carry it. Even many specialty grocers struggle to source it consistently. Fresh culantro sells for $10 to $20 per pound at markets that cater to Latin American, Caribbean, and Southeast Asian communities, and it often moves at the top end of that range through direct sales to restaurants. It prefers warm, humid conditions and partial shade, which makes it ideal for growers in the southern U.S. or anyone with protected growing space. Because it's so underrepresented in mainstream agriculture, a grower who builds relationships with specific ethnic markets or cuisine-focused restaurants can carve out a loyal, consistent customer base that barely sees any competition. Shiso is the 11th, and this is one of the most sought-after specialty herbs in Japanese cuisine. Perilla frutescens, also called shiso or perilla, is a staple garnish alongside sashimi and sushi, an ingredient in rice dishes, salads, pickles, and traditional Japanese drinks. With Japanese and Korean cuisine growing rapidly across the US and Europe, and specialty Asian grocery stores expanding in most major cities, the demand for fresh shiso leaves has climbed steadily year over year. Fresh shiso leaves sell for $12 to $25 per pound through specialty Asian grocery stores and directly to Japanese and Korean restaurants. The reason the price holds is shiso's shelf life. The leaves lose quality quickly after harvest, which means restaurants and specialty grocers are actively willing to pay premium prices for locally grown, freshly cut supply rather than imported product that's already past its peak. For a grower within reach of a city with a Japanese or Korean restaurant scene, shiso is one of the highest value per square foot crops available. It grows readily from seed in warm conditions, comes in both green and red varieties, both of which are marketable, and thrives in containers or in the ground. Mexican tarragon is the 12th, and this plant occupies a clever niche that most gardeners don't know exists. Tagetes lucida tastes remarkably similar to French tarragon, which is the classic culinary tarragon used in fine French cooking. But French tarragon is notoriously finicky. It struggles in hot climates, doesn't tolerate humidity well, and can disappoint growers in the American South or most of the Mediterranean. Mexican tarragon fills that gap beautifully, producing the same anise licorice flavor profile, but thriving in heat and humidity where its French counterpart fails. Dried Mexican tarragon sells for $10 to $18 per pound, and fresh bunches move well at farmers markets and through direct restaurant sales to chefs who want tarragon flavor in warm climates where French tarragon isn't reliable. It also produces beautiful golden yellow flowers late in the growing season, which opens a second market as a specialty cut flower. And it makes a pleasant anise-flavored herbal tea. 3 market categories from a single plant that asks very little in return. And that's the kind of versatility experienced growers build around. Epazote is the 13th, and this one is nearly invisible in mainstream American horticulture, but it's absolutely essential in Mexican and Central American cooking. Dysphania ambrosioides is the herb that authentic cooks use to season black beans, to enhance traditional bean dishes, and to add depth to corn tortillas, tamales, and regional specialties. The flavor is distinctive and strong, and there's simply no substitute for it in traditional recipes. For communities cooking Mexican and Central American food at home, epazote is not optional. Fresh epazote sells for $6 to $15 per pound at markets that serve Latin American communities, and dried epazote commands similar pricing through specialty food retailers and online. The plant itself is extraordinarily easy to grow. In warm climates, it can become aggressively self-seeding, which means once you have it essentially forever. It tolerates poor soils, drought, and neglect better than almost anything else on this list. For a grower near a substantial Latin American community, or with reliable online shipping capability, epazote is one of the lowest effort, lowest cost crops available, with a consistently hungry market behind it. Fenugreek is the 14th, and this plant is underpriced and underappreciated in Western markets while being enormous across South Asia, North Africa, and the Middle East. Trigonella Phoenum graecum produces both edible seeds and leaves, and both are used in completely different ways. The seeds are ground into spice blends central to Indian, Ethiopian, and North African cooking. The fresh or dried leaves, called kasuri methi when dried, are a specialty ingredient in South Asian cooking that's almost impossible to find fresh in most American and European cities. Fenugreek seeds sell for $8 to $15 per pound at retail, higher for certified organic. Dried fenugreek leaves command premium prices through South Asian grocery stores, where they're often sold in small packages at dramatically higher per-pound equivalents. On top of the culinary market, fenugreek has a substantial supplement market driven by studies on its effects on blood sugar, appetite regulation, and milk production support for nursing mothers, which opens a second buyer category. Growing fenugreek is straightforward. It's a fast annual that goes from seed to harvest in 3 to 4 months. It fixes nitrogen in the soil as it grows, which means it actually improves your soil for the next crop. Low cost to start, relatively easy to grow, and connected to one of the most loyal buying communities in specialty food. Sichuan pepper is the 15th, and this is the specialty spice that serious cooks are genuinely excited about right now. Sichuan pepper isn't actually a pepper at all. It's the dried berry husk of the xanthoxylum plant, and it creates a flavor experience unlike anything else in the spice world. A distinctive numbing, tingling sensation on the tongue, called ma in Chinese, combined with bright citrusy floral notes. It's the signature flavor of authentic Sichuan cuisine, and as Chinese and broader Asian cooking continues to grow in popularity globally, demand for quality, Sichuan pepper has climbed steadily. Dried Sichuan pepper sells for $20 to $40 per pound in specialty food stores and online, with high-quality small-batch product from artisan producers commanding the higher end. It's still quite rare as a domestically grown crop in most Western countries, which means there's meaningful first-mover advantage available for growers willing to establish a production planting now. Here's the honest caveat, though. Xanthoxylum plants are woody shrubs or small trees that require patience. You're looking at 5 to 7 years from planting before meaningful harvest, which means this is a long-term investment rather than a quick return crop. But once established, the plants produce for decades. And as global interest in authentic Sichuan cuisine keeps growing, the long-term economics work in favor of any grower willing to start now. Those are 15 plants, and I want to close with honest perspective, because the gap between planting a high-value crop and actually earning meaningful income from it is real, and most content on this topic skips over it. Growing the plant is the easy part. Selling it is where the work happens. The growers who actually build steady income from specialty plants tend to do 3 things consistently. They identify their specific buyers before planting rather than after. They build direct relationships with restaurants, specialty grocers, herbalists, or ethnic food retailers who need what they're growing. And they start small, prove the market works, and scale only after demand is confirmed. A farmer's market table is a good place to start with most of these plants, because it puts you directly in front of retail customers willing to pay retail prices. But the most reliable income tends to come from direct relationships with a small number of consistent buyers. A chef at a Japanese restaurant who buys Shiso from you every week. A small herbal tea company that takes your lemon balm every harvest. A Latin American grocery store that orders Culantro from you twice a month. These relationships, once built, produce predictable income that smooths out the seasonal volatility that otherwise makes small-scale specialty growing financially inconsistent. Choose 3 to 5 of these plants that match your climate and your local market. Not all 15. Spreading yourself across too many crops in your first season is the fastest way to underperform at all of them. The lowest barrier starting points for most climates are lemon balm, calendula, catnip, and Mexican tarragon. They grow easily, they connect to well-established buyers, and they give you a season to learn the rhythm of small-scale specialty production before committing to higher value but more demanding crops. Start with what fits your reality. Prove the model on 1 or 2 plants. Build 1 or 2 consistent buyer relationships. And then, if the model works, scale into the higher opportunity crops with confidence that the system you're building actually delivers. If this gave you a clearer picture of what a garden can become when you grow with real intention, type "grow" in the comments and hit the like button. It helps this channel reach more gardeners who are ready to stop settling for ordinary harvests and start planting with purpose. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.